Here's a California Senate, California legislature, 1953, Senate Investigating Committee, and published by the state of California. Okay, and it says, so-called modern communism is apparently the same hypocritical and deadly world conspiracy to destroy civilization that was founded by the secret order of the Illuminati in Bavaria, 1776, May 1st. The World Revolution conspiracy appears to have been so well organized and to be ever continuing and ever on the alert to take advantage of every opportunity presenting itself so that the conspirators could create it is significant in this connection that as early as 1783, when unsettled conditions and dissatisfaction in some quarters had arisen in the American colonies, subversive anonymous sermons were circulated among the colonial army to incite dissatisfaction and rebellion. George Washington immediately called the army together, and in addressing them, he used this significant language. We're talking about 1783. George Washington said this, quote, "My God, what can this writer have in view by recommending such measures? Can he be a friend to the army? Can he be a friend to this country? Rather, is he not an insidious foe, some emissary perhaps from New York?" So George Washington already realized that there are conspirators who are planning our demise, and they're operating out of New York. Then the Senate goes on to say, it is plain that Washington believed the then center of this secret conspiracy, so far as this country was concerned, to be located in New York, and felt it to be his duty to make such a direct statement. So what we're talking about here is as far back as 1783, we've known what was going on. Well, I better go on to the next quote because it'll make sense. The recognition of May 1st, 1776 as the founding date, which is on the bottom of the pyramid on the dollar bill, 1776, has nothing to do with founding this country in 1776. It has to do with the founding of the Illuminati in 1776. The recognition of May 1st, May Day. That's why in military, when a plane's going down or there's trouble, they call it, it's a May Day call. It's a May Day. May Day means trouble. That's right, because these people are trouble. They cause chaos, violence, revolutions throughout the world, bloodshed in Afghanistan, in Yugoslavia. Anytime these people decide they want you, that's trouble. It's May Day, and that's the symbol for them was May 1st. That's when their conspiracy was formed in 1776. Now, the recognition of May 1st, 1776 as the founding date of this World Revolution conspiracy is not difficult to understand when it is realized that May Day is frequently celebrated, even in recent times, by rioting and bloodshed on a worldwide scale. That's why the Soviet Union always had their May Day parades, because the Soviet Union was always going out and killing people and murdering people, and they would celebrate on May 1st, because what they were saying on May Day was that they're celebrating the world conspiracy. They're celebrating the world Masonic conspiracy that is financing the Soviet Union. And incidentally, and as it says, it's often celebrated, even in recent times, by rioting. That's when we had our last riot in Los Angeles, was on May 1st, May Day. I mean, the thing that happened in Los Angeles was set up. The CIA and the federal government set up what we call the riot in Los Angeles. They set up those four guys to, the whole thing was a setup. Dick Gregory even got into this for a 3-hour talk on KPFK, where this whole thing of Rodney King beating was a setup. It was all planned. It was purposely planned. It was purposely designed because they knew the people would be angry and would riot. It was a setup. The whole thing. That's why in wartime, we call in this country in wartime, generals talk about the theater of war, the Pacific theater, the Atlantic theater, the European theater. The theater implies it's an act. It's a plan. It's just a theater. It's entertainment. You know, that's all it is. It's a theater of war. In other words, when you see all this violence and raping and killing going on in Czechoslovakia or Romania or wherever the hell it's going on, or in Yugoslavia, it's all been planned. Now, what do you think the Pentagon is all about? They're sitting there planning how they're going to take over different countries, what they need from certain countries. They're breaking the monetary systems of the world. It was all being well planned. There ain't nothing, like Roosevelt said, there ain't nothing happening by chance in politics. Anyway, in issuing this manifesto, the communist conspirators evidently believed the time had arrived when, with the aid of ignorant victims, a worldwide takeover could be accomplished, and there were not enough ignorant victims then, and the expected coup failed. The conspirators thereupon conceived a plan for the future of supplementing the long-established secret conspiracy in existence since May 1st, 1776, with an unremittent public campaign for victims among the ignorant of all nations, and in an attempt to hide from view the underlying hypocritical conspiracies existing since May 1st, 1776, it was decided that in such public campaign the manifesto of 1848 should be heralded as the founding date for communism, and Karl Marx falsely proclaimed it as its author. What this is saying is that we are taught in school that communism is directly caused by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels writing the Communist Manifesto. In 1848, Communist Manifesto was written by Karl Marx. No such a thing. History tells you that it was written, the Communist Manifesto was written in 1776 in Europe by an order of Freemasonry called the Illuminati. And it wasn't until 1848 that they decided, well, we better tell everybody that somebody else did it. So we'll say Karl Marx came up with it in 1848. No way. What we call communism is nothing more than a plan by the banking elements in England and America to divide the world between two divisions, to divide the world between the East and the West, so that you can have war. You've got to have war, chaos, before you can bring control. That's why the United States financed Adolf Hitler. The United States financed the Soviet Union. Soviet Union is called the Soviet Union, not because it's a union of states, it's because it was a unionized under International Labor Organization, the ILO, which was originally called the IWW, the International Workers of the World, which because they wanted to unionize all labor. Painters Union, the Carpenters Union, the Soviet Union, it's unionizing labor. And once you can unionize labor, get control over monetary and labor systems, now you can have them war with each other, and you've got control over them. These people are very, very smart. They've got this stuff together. And here's George Washington's, the writings of George Washington from the U.S. government printing office, from original manuscripts. Here George Washington says, I have heard much of the nefarious and dangerous plan and doctrines of the Illuminati. It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and the principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States, see, on the Masons and the Illuminati. In the United States, on the contrary, no one is more truly satisfied of this fact than I am. So he's saying, you don't have to tell me about the Illuminati and what they're doing in New York. I already know. Here is interesting, though. On the Masons and the Illuminati, George Washington writing said, individual Freemasons of them, in other words, he's saying in this letter to the man who wrote it, I don't believe all Freemasons in the whole world are evil. I don't think all Freemasons in the whole world are bad. But I know what you're talking about when you say that there is a secret conspiracy operating out of New York and in America and throughout the world. Nobody is more truly convinced of that than I am. Of course, there's a lot of ignorant people in Freemasonry that don't know any of this. But that individuals of them may have done it. I'm going to paraphrase this because it's an old English. Washington is saying, the idea I meant to convey was that I did not believe that the lodges of Freemasons in this country had, as societies, endeavored to propagate the diabolical tenets of the first, the Illuminati, or the principles, the pernicious principles of the latter, the Jacobins, if they are susceptible to separation. But that there are individuals in the Freemasonic order who may have done this, or that the founder or instruments employed to found the democratic societies of the United States, later to become known as the Democratic Party. The founder or the instruments employed to found the Democratic Party in the United States may have had these objects in mind and actually had the separation of the people from their government in view is too evident to be questioned. What he's saying is that the Democratic Party was founded by a secret society of Freemasons that have one thing that they wanted to do, and that is divide the people from their government. Because before, under a Republican form of government, the people had total control because they were sovereigns. Under a democratic system, when you elect a Democrat, they were already had the idea of separating the people from their government. You just elect some airhead here and send him to Washington. But what you don't know is that this person is not even allowed to run for office unless he is one of them. He's not even allowed to run for Senate or for the state or for any position without being a part of this thing. So if you want to run for office, you just go out and try and see how well you can run for office without being a part of the Illuminati or the Freemasonic order of things. If you don't belong to the right club, Jack, you ain't going nowhere, period. Here's a congressional report from the congressional hearings on steps toward British Union, again, Union, steps toward British Union, a world state in international strife. I'll run that back by you again. British Union, a world state. What are you talking about, world state? You're talking about a one world order, a world state, an international war. And on page 13, this is a very interesting document, 28 pages long. But on page 13 it says, let me call your attention to the fact that on the reverse of the Great Seal of the U.S., which appears on dollar bills, you will find the exact symbol of the British Israel World Federation movement. This symbol is also carried on literature of other organizations promoting a world government and a world religion. At the bottom of the circle surrounding the pyramid, you'll find the words Novus Ordo Seclorum. This is the new order that was advocated by Clinton Roosevelt several hundred years ago. So this is a symbol of a thing called the British Israel World Federation. It is a connection between England and America and the Masonic orders of both and how they put this thing together. That's why, I guess, again, we say that England is God's kingdom, the United Kingdom. And as a matter of fact, there's a very big difference. A lot of people don't know this. There's a very big difference between being an English and British. British comes from a Hebrew word. Brit in Hebrew means a contract or a covenant. And ish in Hebrew means man. Therefore, British means the covenant man, man of the covenant. What covenant? It's the new covenant, God's covenant for a kingdom through Christianity, through God's kingdom, the United Kingdom, the British. And the British, with America, are involved in something called British Israel Freemasonry. And all these dopes in Washington, D.C., and these conspirators in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, are nothing more than frontmen for a very powerful secret society is preparing us to accept something that's called God's kingdom. Remember, Armageddon's coming, the end of the last days, the end of the world, Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormon Church, the end of the world. You better do your homework. There's something going on here. That's why we have a 51st state. Incidentally, a legal term in this country for a state is called the state of. Like the state of Alabama, the state of New York, the state of Florida. State of is a legal term according to International Maritime Admiralty law. That's why we have a state of Israel. Israel's not a country, it's not a nation, it's called the state of Israel because it was set up as part of our federal system. It was set up in 1948 by the United States and England, and it was referred to under International Maritime Admiralty law as the state of Israel because it is an actual state of the federal system of America. So you better figure out why too. There's a reason for it. Here is a symbol taken from a Freemasonic book they didn't know I had, and here's the fires of revolution and trouble, anarchy, the cauldron of fire they call it in Freemasonry, of the revolutionary trouble, and here's the pyramid with the Masonic. And down here you have three contingents or three factions of Freemasonry always at war with each other. You have the Pope, which is incidentally, the Catholic Church is a Jewish Freemasonic movement founded in the Middle Ages in the year 325 by Constantine. It is a Jewish Freemasonic political movement. That's why the Pope wears the little yarmulke. He wears the little yarmulke with the cardinals. They wear the tellus. All of these symbols and emblems in the Catholic Church are nothing but Jewish Freemasonry. Kabbalistic Yeah, Kabbalistic Freemasonry. You'll see, I'll give you a lot of examples of that very quickly. This represents Rome, or the Roman Freemasonic orders, and incidentally, you'll see a lot of this stuff in Godfather 3. In the movie Godfather 3, there's a lot of this stuff talking about the secret societies and the Freemasons operating in the Vatican and all that kind of stuff. And, incidentally, the guy who directed those shows and put them on the Godfather series, Francis Ford Coppola. I was doing some research at the police department down at Parker Center, and in their files, they have a whole file on Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola's father was Carmine Coppola, who was a don in the mafia in the city of Corleone, Italy. Huh? Corleone's? That was his father. His father was a don in the mafia in Corleone, Italy. That's how you can make such a great movie and know so much about it. Hell, his father is the don in Corleone. You know? So, anyway, incidentally, I think Francis Ford Coppola is great, but I mean, he's very knowledgeable. He's put stuff together. You better figure out where he's getting all that money to make, Apocalypse Now and all the, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Where's he getting the money from? I mean, where do these people get the money from? They're getting it from secret societies and fraternal orders that are the powers behind our government, okay? So here we got the Vatican, we got the Knights of Malta, and the King of England. They're all in there working up the fires of trouble all over the world. Here's the Pope with the yarmulke. Why, I ask you, are all of the politicians and all these world leaders all on their knees to the Pope? It's not because they're Catholic. I mean, here's the Emperor of Japan, Japanese, and he's on his knees, or getting ready to. So how come these people are all on their knees to the Pope? It has nothing to do with the fact that he's Catholic. It has to do with the fact of who he represents. He represents a very powerful secret society referred to as the Knights of Malta. And in world Freemasonry, there is something we call today an unwritten code of ethics among the thieves. I mean, you may be the East Coast family and the West Coast family, but when you meet, there's a certain respect for each other. So the Eastern nations, they respect that he represents a very powerful secret society of the West. And so it's only honorable to show respect. It doesn't mean we can't have a war. It doesn't mean we can't kill each other. But this is a state affair, so we all on our knees. And these symbols here, the stripes going over the shoulders, all are Masonic emblems. They always represent who you are in the Masonic structure of things in world Freemasonry. That's it, exactly. That's why they killed John Kennedy, too, because the Pope, they were afraid. Freemasonry in this country was very much afraid that John Kennedy was going, the old Joe Kennedy was going to start a Catholic dynasty in America. And that's one thing they're not going to have in America, the Catholic dynasty. You can't help it once in a while a Catholic will get elected or something, but we ain't have no dynasty here. I mean, every time you turn around, Joe Kennedy had, 15 kids? My God, he was going to have kids galore. And he wanted to have all his sons, be president, congressmen, senators, always going to be a Kennedy doing something every time you turn around. So somebody decided to take Kennedy out. It's interesting that Kennedy, all the stuff around Kennedy's assassination is just filled with secret societies, fraternal orders. All you need to do is see JFK and you know there's something going on here. Anyway, here you got the Knights of Malta on Nazi soldiers with Adolf Hitler. That's because Adolf Hitler was connected with the Vatican. The Vatican signed concordance with Adolf Hitler. And that's why Mussolini and Adolf Hitler and the Pope, they were the enemies of Jewish Freemasonry in America. That's why if they're going to kill a few Jews in Europe, who the hell cares? I mean, that's business, you know. That's why Hitler was killing Jews, is because the Vatican was an opposing branch of Freemasonry, which was a Gentile Roman branch of Freemasonry, which is why Rome, Mussolini of Italy, joined together with Adolf Hitler because they were trying to reestablish what is called an Aryan system of laws and science in the world as opposed to the New World Order in America. But when you see all these things happening on a world scale, they're not just happening. There's reasons for all of this stuff. You know, here's Nazi officials. They look like some of the people who run this country. They're just like it, too. And they look about, yeah, don't they? Don't they look like governors and senators and whatever? And so here's an emblem right here. This is the Knights of Malta. They all wear the Knights of Malta symbol, Masonic Order of Malta, Roman Freemasonry. But then down here is this is the Military Order of Malta. Incidentally, when you see the round circle with the swastika was the old Aryan Hindu symbol for the sun, like the Egyptians had Horus. Well, the ancient Aryans of India had the swastika for the sun. Incidentally, the swastika for the sun for the Aryans and the Buddhists, the broken legs went the opposite way. Hitler inverted them and went the opposite way. The Aryans had it going clockwise, which meant something spiritually in the esoteric. Hitler broke the legs and made it go backwards, which meant it's going back to the east instead of going to the west. So he was reestablishing the old Aryan Empire on the ancient Eastern occultism. All of this has to do with secret societies and subversive movements. But anyway, this Knights of Malta religious emblem here on this one is interesting because when you enlarge it, I think I need to, that's pretty good. You'll see that it is the same one as the other one we showed on the before, Knights of Malta, but you'll see it's two circles. There's an outside circle and an inside circle, all right? Here it is again. Outside circle and inside circle, okay? Knights of Malta, religious Knights of Malta cross. And there it is again. But where is this at? It's in Pasadena. First Congregational Church in Pasadena. Right? It's on churches right here in Pasadena. The Knights of Malta, religious Knights of Malta symbol. So, oh, and something else you might be interested to know. On all churches, you'll find a pointed arches on the doors. You go into the church with a pointed arch, and the windows are pointed arches. The pointed arches symbolize the female. The pointed arch of the female, and that's why the male. That's why they would never allow women to be priests in a church, because the philosophy which gave birth to what we call Roman Catholic or Western Christian civilization was based on the female arch, and the priest wears the robe, or the robe, which is the female dress. A robe is a female dress, and a priest wears a robe because spirituality in the ancient world, according to the ancient world, spirituality was always in the hands of female, not the males. Men were never thought to be holders of religion or spiritual creatures. They were the ones that went out and killed and raped and murdered and brought in the food. The women were the ones that nurtured the child, brought civilization to males, because if you take all males, you lose civilization. You need the female to civilize society. Yes? Oh, yeah. The compass of the male. It has to do with, and that's why I said that the priest represents what the long robe, he's representing female wisdom, or something the Greeks called it Pista Sophia, female wisdom. And within the female wisdom, beneath is the male. So it all has to do with symbology, it all has to do with sex, the female, pointed arch, etc. All right, then we get up here to York Rite Freemasonry again, and here is the Masonic square, or the Masonic, the Malta, Knights of Malta cross. The cross, that's the same one the Queen was wearing. Right? The Knights of Malta cross, here it is again. Let me go back to that. Order of Knights Templars. That's why in Israel today, you see the Jews going to the Wailing Wall, and you see this in the news. They're at the Wailing Wall. It's the wall in which they wail. They wail because of the Wailing Wall was put there It's a very difficult story to say in a couple of words, but that's where we get Wall Street, from the Wailing Wall, the Hebrews who wail on the Wailing Wall of Wall Street. It has to do with symbolism, which goes back to Solomon's Temple. Solomon's Temple was the symbol and the home of what is called the Knights Templars, Knights of the Temple. That's why Steven Spielberg has the Jedi Knights, and the Empire Strikes Back and the Jedi Knight. Incidentally, according to, if you go to the library and look up the Masonic folklore, you will see that the spiritual connection between the Freemasons of the York Rite and God was a little spiritual creature they called Yoda, with little pointed ears, and he was a magician. They call him Yoda. Yoda comes from Yoda, or Judah. It has to do with Judah, Yoda, the Knights of Malta, and whatever. You know, you could make a whole study out of any of this. You could make a 3-hour lecture out of every single thing I'm saying. You could spend hours on it, but I'm just throwing all of this stuff in just to show you that there are connections that can be made. Anyway, the Knights of Malta with their Maltese cross. Here's another Knights of Malta, 33rd degree Freemason with the Knights of Malta, okay? Here's the same one on Masters of the Universe, right? That's what they intend to be, is Masters of the Universe. I mean, hell, they own the Earth. Now they're going for the universe, right? Now they want to go out to other stars, moon, own the whole universe, Masters of the Universe. Blonde hair, Aryan. Remember Hitler with the blonde hair, Aryan, Knights of Malta, Catholic Church, kill the Jews. Hey, it's all connected. Right? Okay? You get the Knights of Malta again. And I'm drawing your attention to this strange configuration here because you'll see it again in the fire department. LA Fire Department has the Knights of Malta. Because the fire department, the police department, sheriff's department, mayor's department, and everybody else's department is all Masonic, the whole thing. We are in the hands of a very powerful secret society, and we call it law. Actually, it's nothing more than secret societies who have totally taken us over. And we just go along to get along because we're too ignorant and too frightened to death to do anything we didn't know. Yes? You have a red background. The Knights of Malta are a Gentile Roman Freemasonic order coming out of the old Roman Empire, which was the collective power of the old world of Europe, because Europe was dominated by Rome. And so the Knights of Malta is a symbol for a Masonic order coming out of the old world order of Europe, and it was called the Knights of Malta, and because it goes back to an old priesthood on the island of Malta. Malta was a symbol many, many, many years ago, over 2,000 years ago in the Roman Empire. Let me think of something that's comparable. You know, there are certain places in our country that are hot spots for occultism. And in the Roman Empire, Malta, the island of Malta, was a place where you go there, and those people are really off the wall out there. They got strange stuff going on there, occults and all that kind of stuff. So Malta was always a symbol for occultism in the ancient world. And so the Romans had what they called the Knights of Malta, the Knights who operate. Yes? No, the Illuminati, right. The Illuminati is a relatively new phenomena in Freemasonry. It came in 1776 with Adam Weishaupt. But what the Illuminati was merely a course correction in Freemasonry. There was the Roman world under the Roman domination of Europe, Freemasonic orders. There was the coming out of Spain, France, the coming of what is called York Rite or Scottish Rite Freemasonry, England, Spain, France, coming into America to found a new world order, but above them, above the two orders, which is the eagle with the double head, implying that both sides both the old world order and the new world order are being dominated by a third one. And that's what Ian Fleming in his James Bond novels was talking about, that there's a third power over the two. And it's controlling both. And that's the Illuminati. No, this is just showing the Knights of Malta symbol, which is Roman Freemasonry, but it shows how they don't mind using both sides, as long as you remember that America is a York Scottish Rite country. They don't, you know, they're symbols of Freemasonry, and what I have to do is I have to show you their works, their reference works, that explain these symbols and how they connect, because they're very open with it. They explain their symbols and how they got here and what they mean and why they allow them to be used. Yes. No, they're all working together for the same goal. The same goal is to create chaos, to have Adolf Hitler fight the United States, have Russia fight America, have China fight. All of this stuff is being orchestrated from a higher Masonic order. Well, that's the thing that there's been a lot of conjecture on. There's been a lot of books written about that. Ian Fleming wrote his James Bond novel. He called it Spectre. Remember, somebody, the secret, petting the cat, and he's putting the West against the East all the time. And Ian Fleming, when he was interviewed on David Frost's show, they asked him, who is this Spectre, this third power group that's always getting the East and the West at war? And he said, England and America and the Western world are aware that there is a third power in the world that pits the two together. And that is operating, he said, out of Switzerland. That's what I think is why Switzerland is a neutral country, because that's where the big boys live. And you don't mess with, yes, the World Bank. As a matter of fact, in Switzerland, there's a large building in one of the cities of Switzerland, and I had a big color picture of it. I don't have it on slides now. There's a large building in a big downtown city in Switzerland, and it's a round, perfectly round building, enormous inside, look like maybe 2 or 3 blocks, round circle, and it's divided into equal 3, into an equal triangle. And 1/3 is it says in the article, 1/3 of the building, and then when you fly over it, you can see it. It's like the peace symbol. That's why the peace symbol was the Y within the circle, okay? It was called in runic, in the old German runic, it was called the peace symbol. Anyway, the 1/3 of that building in Switzerland is the world headquarters for the United Nations. 1/3 of the other third is the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the other third is the world headquarters for Freemasons, the Masonic World Congress. So you got the Masonic World Congress, World Government, United Nations, and the World Bank. This way they keep it all together. You don't have to go out for coffee. You can all work together, right here together, right? Yeah, it's incredible. Here again, I show you the Pope with the Jewish yarmulke. There's a reason why the Pope wears a yarmulke. That's a Jewish headdress. That has nothing to do with God. It has to do with Jewish Freemasonry. The reason why he's called a cardinal, the word cardinal means a hinge on a door. That's what the word means in Latin, a hinge. And the Pope, the word Pope comes from Papa, which is Latin, which means the door to the mysteries. He is the one that you must go through to open up the mystery of God. So therefore, he's the door and he's the hinge. The cardinals are the hinge for the door. And it goes all the way back to Babylon. It goes back to the old ancient Babylonian and mystical religions. Here's a document I got from a Freemasonic friend of mine who got me this document. It's a color. It was on the wall, and I asked him if he had a color reproduction of it. He did. He gave it to me. And it shows some of the different, what is called, the different divisions of Freemasonry throughout Europe. And what they mean and how these guys are all connected together. You know, from England to France to Italy, Spain, it's all being connected. It's all being orchestrated. And yes, I'm not even sure what those words are. That one? I sat and talked to the librarian, the chief librarian. His name was Cook. He was the one that had a copy of this, and he was just explaining how these were the different concordant orders of Freemasonry. in some of the different symbols that are used throughout Europe. I thought it was interesting when I first saw it because that looks like the Pope's tiara, Pope's diadem, right? And that looks like the Pope's diadem. And I called it to his attention. He said, yes, it is. That's the papal headdress. With the, so what we're talking about here is free. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I'm saying I don't read the language. That's what I'm saying. Do you read it? No, I don't either. I forgot what the guy was saying. He was, he was an old man. He was telling me all this stuff, and he was writing it all down for me. And I J-E-U, de la. Probably. That probably has something to do with it. Yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah, whatever. And he's part of the group and part of the plan. Of course. Because it's the state of the New York Empire. Right, the Empire Strikes Back. George Lucas. Oh yeah, the more we change, the more we stay the same. Nothing new. Here it is again, the Vatican with the Masonic symbols. I'll run through this pretty quick. I don't want you to get too bored. But anyway, here's a papal headdress, but these are all accoutrements for Judaism, right? The Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat, and here's the Jewish high priest, and he's wearing the same one you just saw, which was worn by the Pope. The Pope's headdress. But we're talking Jewish here. We're not talking Roman Catholic. Unless, of course, you understand Roman Catholic is Jewish. Here is Freemasonry, and off of a page it's called Chapter Jewels of Freemasonry. Symbols of the different departments of Freemasonry. And up here you'll see the king, the scribe, and the high priest. And for the high priest, what you have is the Pope's headdress. The Pope is the high priest of Freemasonry. And the King of England, he's in there too. But that's why there was a war between the King of England, King Henry VIII, had a falling out with the Pope. And the King Henry said to the Pope, I don't like the way you're doing things here because you're hanging out too much with the wrong kind of people, and so our Knights of the Order of York are not happy with you, and so we're going to break it off. We don't want you ruling England anymore. So from here on out, we're going to be king of the kingdom. The keys are going to be those keys on the bottom of the papacy on the Masonic. Well, let me go back and show it to you. Come on, one more time. Where are the keys? I thought the keys were, okay. Anyway, on the papacy, you might see it here yet, there's always those two large keys under the Pope's symbol. I think that's where we get the Florida keys from, because if you understand what the word keys and what it means, Florida keys, I think, is connected to it. Because those people down there in the Florida Keys, better know who those people are. The Florida Keys are a home for some of the most powerful mobsters the world has ever known. They got a whole thing down there, and if you understood how many millions and millions of dollars, I mean countless millions of dollars, went into just building that highway from the coast of Florida all the way out to the Keys. That is an astronomical feat for the military, and the military was in charge of doing that. The Seabees laid it all out, and the military laid out that, and if you've ever gone down there, that highway is a beautiful highway, going way out as far out as the eye can see. Right. Now, how much did that cost? And how come you put it out there? For who? So, yeah. They didn't put it out there for me. I don't live there. 175-mile bridge out in the middle of nowhere, and I don't mean a little platoon thing. I mean a beautiful bridge going all the way out to those islands, and there are hundreds of islands out there. Why? Because those families that live out there were friends like B.B. Rebozo, the friends of Nixon. I always see the presidents going down to the Florida Keys. That's because these guys who are the powers behind this live out there in the Keys on those islands by themselves, like in the Sean Connery, James Bond movies. These guys are absolutely horrendous. They got a thing going that will not stop. And we have no idea in the world what's going on. That's why they call it the Florida Keys. Again, I say within the triangle of Freemasonry, you have the Pope's hat. Here is the breastplate of righteousness for the Jewish high priest, the high priest of Judaism, with the Masonic apron, the fleur-de-lis, which is a symbol of France, which is a symbol of sex, joining the male and female, and he's wearing the Pope's headdress, okay? Here's another Masonic apron, and on the apron you will see King of England, the Pope. Incidentally, that's why when you go to college, you get out of high school, you wear, when you graduate from high school and college, you wear a black robe, same black robe that a priest wears. It's the same black robe that a judge wears. And the square you wear on your head when graduating is called a martyr board. It's a square of Freemasonry. So if you go to church and you do things right and you stay in line, you're square. Yeah. And here is what we call the Royal Arch Freemasonry, which we saw before, Royal Arch. And that stone right in the middle that holds the two sides of a Royal Arch together is called a keystone. That's why Pennsylvania is called a keystone state. Because Pennsylvania is where the Constitution was signed, where these guys put this whole thing together. That was the Keystone State, where the keystone was finally dropped between the 6 and the 6, and the one in the middle makes 13, the 13 colony, the Keystone State. Again, it says, for the Royal Arch Chapter, note the headdress of the principals. We're talking about the Royal Arch Chapter, right? And note the headdress, again, the Pope, the King of England. Now, we have something here, these symbols up here, this is what is called, and I can't remember if it's a 60 or the 90, but I'll do it again. This is I think the 60-degree square of Freemasonry with the G for geometry in the middle. The 60, and incidentally, the reason why it's like this is because of the triangle pointing down and the triangle pointing up. You know, if you cross them, then it becomes the Star of David. That's why it's there that way. Yeah, that's it. And that's according to the Masonic books. They say it's actually a takeoff on the Masonic Star of David. Triangle up and triangle down, but this is the 60-degree square. All right. On them, anytime you see like the Olympic stars or any of these other, they always have the ribbon, right? Anytime you get an award from the government, it's on a ribbon. That's called a 90-degree square. That's a square, but it's at the 90th degree, a 90-degree square, okay? You have to keep that in mind because that's a Masonic square, okay? Here it is, the 60-degree and the 90-degree. Okay, I'll back it up. I was wrong. That's the 90-degree, and this is the 60-degree. 90-degree square, 60-degree square. Well, it has to do with, here's the square of the 90-degree, and here's the square progress of the 60-degree, okay? The 60 and the 90 degrees. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about Freemasonry. Okay? Here it is again. The same the square of Freemasonry. Here you see it, the 90 degree and the 60 degree in churches. Yeah. So when you see these choirs, singers in churches, they're wearing the square of Freemasonry on them. And it's only appropriate because they're worshiping the Masonic God. Here is St. Louis at Jerusalem. According to, I don't know if this you can't see this too well, but it says St. Louis at Jerusalem. According to Masonic history, the man who first captured Jerusalem for the Knights Templars was St. Louis. So they honor St. Louis with the Royal Arch in St. Louis, the Royal Arch. Yeah, in St. Louis, the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. I mean, these guys are good. They do all this stuff and crap in front of you, and you have no idea. Yeah. No idea in the world. It's all connected. There's nothing happening by chance. And there's no problem with economics in this country. There's no problem with lawlessness in this country. There's no problem with anything. This is the strongest, most powerful nation on the face of the earth. So if there's any problems, it's because they are causing the problem. They keep you agitated and frightened and scared and in control. Ordo ab teo. Here's something called the Summit of the Arch. This is from a State Department bulletin. And here it's, I don't know if you can see that, the reading. It's the meeting of the of all of the top criminal families in the world. You know, the Germans, the American, Margaret Thatcher. These are all the heads of state in the Western world. And it's the giant glass pyramid. Of course, they would have the picture taken in front of the pyramid in France, and that's why always in any great wars and all the time of world trouble, you always have to have a Paris Peace Conference. You know, in Vietnam and Korea, you always go to Paris because Paris is the home of the French Grand Orient Temple Masons, right? And so here you got the Summit of the Arch. Why would they call this the Summit of the Arch? For the Western world's financial and the leaders of the Western world. Here's a little Masonic library to show you how it's connected with religion. We got Masonry, Mormonism, and Freemasonry from the Masonic Lodge Publishing. So Mormons are founded by, organized by, directed by, and financed by the Freemasons. Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, the two leaders of the Mormon Church, were both 32nd degree Freemasons in the Scottish Rite. There's another book, The Relationship of Mormonism and Freemasonry. Here's Mormonism and Masonry. Freemasonry in the Book of Mormon. Here's, that's why in Utah we have Zion National Park. Zion National Park with the great white throne. Incidentally, it's not black throne, it's a white throne. And that's why America is ruled from the White House. It's not a brown house, a yellow house, it's the White House. Okay, and that's because England is ruled from what is called Whitehall. Whitehall is the central power of England, Whitehall. I'm telling you, the people who are running this country are the most powerful criminals the world's ever known. Here's, oh, wait a minute. Should we take a break? Okay, let me back it up then. Huh? Oh, okay. That way we'll make it work out all right on the tape, okay? So, all right, let's get past this one thing, and then we'll take a break. Masonic Orders of Fraternity. This is taken from a Masonic document. The direct descent of the essential program of the esoteric schools was entrusted to groups already well-conditioned for the work. The guilds, trade unions, similar protective and benevolent societies have been internally strengthened by the introduction of a new learning. The advancement of the plan required an enlargement of the boundaries of the philosophical overstate. A world fraternity was needed, sustained by a deep and broad program of education according to the method. There's a method to this education that we're getting. Such a fraternity could not immediately include all men, but could unite the activities of certain kinds of men, regardless of their racial or religious beliefs or the nations in which they dwelt. Here's the point. These were the men of towardness, those sons of tomorrow whose symbol was the blazing sun rising over the mountains of the east. Remember Shell oil, okay? What it's talking about is that the conspiracy already had knowledge that the guilds, the trade unions, similar protective and benevolent societies were perfect grounds for control. So you set up the Red Cross, you set up the Painters Union, you set up these unions and benevolent societies and this and that, set them all up to ostensibly, of course, protect the people, to help the people. And protection, when in fact they're being organized and directed to control the people. And it does, and such a fraternity could not immediately, we can't explain this conspiracy to everybody. We can't count in everybody on this. But we could unite certain kinds of men, as long as we all understand what's going on here. We could unite these different organizations together. And the symbol for these men, these were the men of towardness, whose sons of tomorrow, these sons of tomorrow, whose symbol was a blazing sun rising over the mountains of the east. That's important. These were the men of towardness, the sons of tomorrow, whose symbol was the blazing sun rising over the mountains of the east. While it is difficult to trace the elements of a pattern never intended to be obvious, the broad shape of a design is dimly apparent, the invisible empire. So it's saying it's very difficult to put all of this together. But the reason why it's difficult is it was never intended to be obvious anyway. And if you're on the inside, you know there's a design, but on the outside, it's not supposed to be obvious. Okay? Here's where they're getting this from. This is from the old Assyrian Babylonian mythology. The sunrise, the god Shemesh appears above the mountains of the east. Here's God's sun rising over the mountains of the east. That goes all the way back to Babylon. Here it is in Hebrew theology, the sun rising, Israelites at Mount Sinai. The sun rising over the east. Shell, the sun. The sun rising on Hebrew Jewish Freemasonry. Here it is, the Kabbalah. We're talking about the Kabbalah. And here on the back on chapter 9 is called the way of one who was caught between the suns of a dying and a dawning day. The one caught between the one who, no, wait a minute, the way of the one who was caught between the suns, implying that there's two suns. There's a sun going down and a new sun coming up. The old sun of the old world order, Rome, is going down. Vatican, Europe, is the old sun, and it's going down, and there's a new sun coming up on America. There's a dawn of a new day for America. It's going to be the king of the world now. 1,000 points of light. All right, so what we're talking about here is between the suns of a dying and dawning day. George Washington said, here's his chair where he signed all of his documents, George Washington. And up here he says, but now at length I have the happiness to know it is a rising and not a setting sun. I now at length have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun. So Washington understood. This is a priceless relic of the Constitutional Convention, the rising sun chair of George Washington. Yeah, with the Fijian cap, yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah, let me go back on that. The Fijian cap, that's the old cap of the Fijians. And the reason why, I mean, I could get into this too. I'm not going to right now, but there's a reason why. We'll get into that another time. That's very interesting too, the Phrygian cap. Here's a book by James Billington, Fire in the Minds of Men. It traces the course of the revolutionary faith from its earliest origins in occult Freemasonry to the allegedly scientific Marxism of today. So when you hear things about scientific Marxism, communism, the Soviet Union, and all of that, what we're talking about, scientific Marxism, is actually had its earliest origins in occult Freemasonry. And James Billington has written some brilliant books. He is a Rhodes Scholar, like the new president. He's a Rhodes Scholar also. He teaches at Oxford. He's probably taught our new president. He is a really establishment boy. This guy is well thought of by all the gangsters on top of the governments of the world. He's their boy. And he is a very, very brilliant man. He's put out some very thick books on Illuminati and Masonic. This whole book is dealing with the Masonic symbols and emblems that are used throughout the world and what they mean, and well, a tremendous book. But I was showing you this only because in relation to Marxism, connecting it with the origins in Freemasonry, okay? Again, here's a page from an encyclopedia on Russia, and over here you have the flag and this national coat of arms. The national coat of arms talks about the rising sun is a symbol of the dawning of the new day of communism. New day is in quotes, okay? The rising sun is a symbol of the dawning of the new day of communism, all right? This symbol came out for the Soviet Union in 1930s, late 30s, mid to late 30s. It originally came out at that time. In New York, we have the dawn of a new day, dawning of a new day of communism. And in New York, we have for the World's Fair of 1939, the dawn of a new day. There's connections between the New York World's Fair and the coming of the Soviet Union. Somebody's trying to tell us something in New York. Sun rising in Russia, Soviet Union, sunrise. Here's the, what is it, half a dollar? Yeah, 50 cents. And here it says, she is moving toward the dawn of a new day, the sun rising for us. They put communism over there, it's rising for us now. Now we're coming into a communist system. We call it democratic, like the People's Democratic Republic of China, the People's Democratic Republic of Cuba, the People's Democratic Republic of Romania, and now we got the People's Democratic Republic of America. And nothing, and all Marxist communism is the same as the old Roman fascism. It's all totalitarian dictatorships, period. Here's Charles Tess Russell, founder of Jehovah's Witnesses. He's telling everybody the new day is dawning, preparing all the poor Jehovah's Witnesses for the dawn of a new day. Here is the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania, Jehovah's Witnesses with the sun rising over the mountains of the east. Here's a Christian distributor for Christian materials called the New Day, sun rising over the mountains of the east. Christians have no idea in the world. All this stuff is being manipulated, presented to them, and they have no idea in the world. And they're out there preparing the world to accept God's kingdom, Channel 40, and never realize the symbols of Channel 40 are Masonic, and all of their leaders are all Freemasons. It's too bad, but it goes back to, pride precedes the fall. When it is you think you have the whole truth and you're in tight with the Lord, that's when you've been had. Richard Nixon struck a coin for himself and called it the New Day for America, the New Dawn for Peace. That's what he did. Here's Liberia, the flag with the symbol for the rising sun on the flag, just to show you how it's used throughout the world. The sun which heralds a new day. Romania, their symbol is the sun, like the shell, the sun rising on the mountains of the east. The rising sun expresses the promise of a new day. Here's Mongolia. The horseman on horseback with the sun rising over the mountains stands for the nation's advance toward communism. Malawi with the red sun. Malawi added the sun to symbolize the dawning of a new day for Africa, and it was. They killed a lot of people over there. And Afghanistan, there was a new dawn for Afghanistan. They broke that up and killed a lot of people. And here's on rings, high school rings, college rings, a new dawning, sun coming up. Here's the sun coming up on college rings and high school rings. There it is. Behold, a new dawn, the sun coming up on the mountains of the east. I mean, hey, they control education, religion, politics, the police department, fire department, and Sears. I mean, let's face it, they own and control the world you live in. It's the only game in town. Behold, a new dawn. Kids wear these rings, have no idea in the world what that means. How much more time do we have on the film? Good. A recurrent mythic model for revolutionaries, early romantics, and young Karl Marx and the Russians of Lenin's time was Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods for the use of mankind. I'll read it again. A recurrent mythic model for revolutionaries. A model for revolutionaries. And early romantics, young Karl Marx, And the Russians of Lenin's time was Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods for the use of mankind. Prometheus. Here in New York, at Rockefeller Center, we have the Prometheus Fountain, the Masonic Square Freemasonry, and in front of Rockefeller Center is Prometheus on the Promethean Fountain, who stole fire from God. And that's why during the Olympics you have they're running around with the torch. It's the torch of Prometheus, like the Statue of Liberty holds the torch of Prometheus. It's a symbol for the Age of Enlightenment, or the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, holders of the light. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm just going to, this is the end of it right here. The United Nations, I was saying today, to one of you today, that the post office, our postal service used to have on our post boxes on the street were red, white, and blue. Today they're just simply blue. They're just simply blue. Because blue is a symbol for Israel. It's the symbol, it's the national color of Israel, which is incidentally the same national color for, the international color for the United Nations. This color blue. This particular shade of blue has since become known as UN blue. This is UN blue. It comes from the old Grand Lodge of Freemasonry, the Grand Lodge blue. That's why they call it blue degree of Freemasonry. The first 3 degrees of Freemasonry is called the blue degrees. That's why the United Nations is blue. Yeah, that's why when you go to college, you get a degree. Because that's the way you move in Freemasonry, is by degrees. The 33rd degree, the 32nd degree, the 3rd degree. You go to college and get a degree, because these people will teach you what you're supposed to know, not what you're not supposed to know. You're not supposed to think like this. They teach you what you're supposed to know. They teach you how to earn a living, not how to live. They teach you how to think, not to think, but how to think. And so that's why when you come out of college, they call you an alumni, because you're an illumini. You are illuminated. You've been enlightened by the powers that be. As long as you stay square and play on the square, you're going to do all right. As long as you don't go thinking too much. Is the end of the first section.